I asked you for your enclosure submissions. Now, last time I gave my reactions to your enclosures, which was fine, but this time I want to set a new standard. We're going to take things further this time, and not only am I going to, first of all, react to your enclosures, but I'm going to go ahead and research. I'm going to try and be as helpful as possible in this video. So, hi, I'm not sure if I'm too late or not, but I'd like to submit my 2 setups for my snakes. First off is a self-build for my pair of CB 2019 male, Chapala or Kapala, I don't know, garter snakes that I purchased in January of this year. Their names are Nacho and Churro. I'm guessing they're Mexican then. Internally, it is 95 by 55 by 60 with a screen top, halogen, 15 watt Jungle Dawn, and Arcadia 24 watt 6% T5 setup using a solar meter. So you've gone the whole shebang then. Gone and got yourself a solar meter and everything. That's cool. They really seem to like the elevated hides, which they use more often than the hides on the ground, and it makes it much easier to have a 30 to 35 degree basking spot without overheating the rest of the enclosure. I'm still waiting on a few things to add in their rope ladder, which they loved in their previous enclosure, and some ropes for additional support when climbing. Okay, this sounds promising. So you've got cork backgrounds, I can see you've got your elevated hides, branches for climbing. You're using Lignosil or Aspen, I think it's Lignosil, on the floor. And I know you're in the UK because I went and checked your YouTube channel to make sure where you're from, and I saw you did some video of a caterpillar from Dorset. So I know you're UK, so this will make things a lot easier for me to be helpful. So, do you know what? I can see influence here from Smouldering Serpents. They look like her style of shelves, where she does the foam and then lets the foam kind of fold over, then dry, and then she shaves it. Yeah, that arboreal basking spot is excellent. I really like that. And what you've also done is given them an area under that curve to have heat up there, but no radiation, which I think is a good choice-based decision. The climbing looks really good. The floor doesn't look as cluttered as I think you probably could do. I think what you probably could do, actually, now that you're in the UK, so, because you're in the UK, if you go to Northampton Reptile Centre, you can see, you can get bulk bags of cork, and it's a 5 kg pack here. If you just bought a bulk pack of cork rounds, or even mix it up with different sizes, you could just chuck them in and just litter the floor. Other than that, I think your heating elements are excellent. You've got the Jungle Dawn UV, and obviously a halogen. But let's go ahead and do some added extra research for you. If we go to iNaturalist and you look for the Kapala or Chapala garter snakes, you will find some sightings in Mexico. So if we look at this sighting here, you can almost see imagine dry reed beds around a water source that they will drape over and dry and bask. So have you ever seen those bamboo fence posts? That bamboo fencing. What's it called? Yeah, like this. Just get get one of these, or go for a really cheap one that you can find, and just rip it up, and just get all the sticks out. And then what you could do is, if we go back to here, if you take your water source, make it a little more central, so rather than down the edge down here, move it slightly inwards, move that cork, and then get lots of cork and some rocks, and build a border up around the water bowl, then you could drape over bits of this bamboo thicket and stuff, and make it look like this real thickety reed bed area around the sides. Now, I was looking at some behavioural stuff they said that they do, and apparently this species is known for hanging over reed beds and stuff over water. So you could replicate that by putting all those little bits of stick from that fencing and stuff over that water bowl. Or you could swap that water bowl out for something even larger and deeper, and then do all that cork and rock building up around that. And then I found on iNaturalist a species of water lettuce that is all over this lake, which is within the range of your species. So I've used this for fish tanks before. So what you could do is just buy some of this water lettuce and just leave it in your big bowl of water. And then when you want to change water, just take the lettuce out, refill it, and just put it back in again. Because it's a floating plant, so you don't have to worry about it rooting anywhere or you uprooting something. It just sits on the surface with these roots that just dangle in the water. So that would be a really cool plant to put in your water bowl that isn't like fixed in a position. You can just remove it and it doesn't affect your actual daily routine of changing water and stuff. And what that would do is, as well as the thickets and stuff that you could lay over the top, that would offer some security when they want to go in the water and stuff. So if we're in the UK, aren't we? So if we go, even just Google that species, and you'll find straight away that you can find it for like £3 and stuff on eBay. And then what I think you could do is, I like your shells, but what you could do is buy some cork rounds, cut it in half, and then use like pins or silicone to put that half round on the wall so that they have like a ledge to sit on, but also that ledge is hollow so they can go through it. And you can make multiple layers up these walls to just make the space a bit more three-dimensional. And that fencing, once you've ripped that up, you can use that on the floor as well to make thickets in the corner and make it really just cluttered on the floor. And you could really play around with that pond area. Okay, next one. This is from Clayton. Hello from California, Liam. Here's a brief description of what's inside and on top of my royal python, my python regis habitat, with pictures attached. Some of the pictures are from different days, and each time I clean his enclosure, I move things around to help keep him stimulated. So placement might be different in the different pictures. I have fake plants from the dollar store lining the walls, with a zoom-in waterfall, a resin half-log hide from PetSmart. The branches and rocks are wild caught. Underneath the rocks, I have reptile carpet to protect the glass bottom of the tank. On top, I have a mercury vapor lamp for heat, day-night cycle and UV. A piece of reptile carpet cut from the screen top to hold in humidity. I hope you enjoy the enclosure. Okay, I will be very, very honest with you and say I think he could do with a larger enclosure. I love the fact that you're providing climbing. Obviously, we know a large part of Python Regis behaviour is climbing, but also we can't forget that they engage in digging behaviour. And I think with that reptile carpet, we aren't necessarily allowing it to express those behaviours. So personally, I would ditch the carpet. I would provide something simple like orchid bark or just soil, just topsoil or potting soil. Have that as a substrate. Then have the rocks in amongst that. I would make sure that you secure the rocks so that the Regis can't actually dig under the rocks and then misplace the soil around it and then squash itself with a rock. But I would change at least some elements of this to include digging. It's hard for me to judge you on humidity because obviously the humidity and ambient humidity in everyone's houses at different times of the year is different depending on where you live. But what I would do with this screen top is I would ditch the felt, the carpet. I would change the mercury vapor lamp to a halogen and then provide a shade dweller or any alternative you can find and provide it along that right side of the tank. And then if you're still having humidity issues, you can use cellophane. I don't know, is that what you call it in America? Cellophane, and cellophane off half of that side. I would get creative with how you place your plants. Maybe drape them over the logs and stuff so that it blocks out some light from the UV from this side to that side. I'm not going to really say anything about the waterfall because I think that might actually do you wonders in terms of humidity. But what I would do is perhaps, rather than focusing on the waterfall so much, provide a humid hide. I'd provide a humid hide on the cool end and stuff that with moss so that the breeders can actually access an area of high humidity that's not necessarily wet. There's a difference between high humidity in the air and wet. So I'm not a big fan of these Exoterra waterfalls in general, because when I worked in a shop there was a lot of issues with bacterial blooms and just not being able to clean them out properly. So personal preference on my part, but I would rather choose a larger water bowl and then perhaps run an airline tube from like the fish hobby into that and get that bubbling to increase evaporation and humidity that way, because that would be far easier to clean than the waterfall. And what you could do for the sides is, if you wanted to get a piece of like OSB or plywood, cut that to the size of the side and back of the tank, silicone them to the glass so that stays in place, and then you can attach pieces of shelving and branches to that plywood so that you're increasing the three-dimensional space within that enclosure. I would recommend that, and I think that would be quite cheap to do. Just go get some sheet material from your hardware store and then go from there. Especially if you can get them to cut to predetermined measurements that you give them, I think that would be quite easy for you. So yeah, I'm sorry if that was a little bit too critical, but people complained last time that I was too soft about things and they wanted some criticism that would actually help people. So we're taking a different approach to this one. I'm trying to be really, really helpful. I'm sorry if it was critical, but if you can't get a large enclosure right now, then fair enough, but there certainly are things that we could do to make that small environment larger in terms of surface area by being a little bit creative with how we work with the backgrounds and such. Yeah, so thank you, Clayton. I hope that was actually helpful to you. Okay, this is from Mark. This is my 4x2x4 bioactive Royal Python enclosure for Elizabeth Longbottom, Duchess of Bavariumshire. It has a 6% forest UVB, Jungle Dawn LED, and Arcadia Deep Heat projector. It's a Viv Exotic 4x2x2 on top of a 4x2x2 box I built, lined with Proplex and pond liner. Still need to add a few more branches and plants, but she seems happy for now. So what you've actually got is something that I've had in mind for a while. You've got the opportunity here to have almost 2 feet of substrate depth as well as 2 feet of climbing. Perhaps you could alter that to have 1 foot of substrate and 3 foot of climbing, but what you could do is get a large piece of cork, one of the really big cork rounds, half bury that in substrate, and then you've catered towards that fossorial part of their natural history, as well as the branches and stuff and climbing up to. Again, what you could do is increase surface area by trying to make shelving. You could even do that by getting like cork pieces like this one you've got here and just screwing that to the wall so that there's cork branches along ledges for them to go along. And then you could have maybe a corner triangle piece of wood, and then you could decorate that to make it look natural, and then have an arboreal basking spot there, and then maybe have it go down to shade at the bottom left or something. That sky hide is great. I really like the fact that they have the opportunity to like seek hollows up in a tree, sort of, in that vivarium. You mean pythons don't just sit on the floor and don't move, they climb? What? But yeah, I mean, like you said, you want to add more branches, so I think alongside what you've already got, as well as adding more opportunities for climbing and increasing the surface area of the enclosure, I think you're onto something really cool. Okay, I'm Ivona from Germany. I'm new to your channel, and I saw your post for sending you an enclosure pic for a reaction video. I have a young plains hognose named Hubert. He lives in a 60x45x45 Exoterra enclosure. The substrate consists of organic garden soil and some sand and loam. There's some isopods, but I think the springtails are gone. I'm planning to add more isopods and springtails for a bioactive enclosure. The isopods are hiding on a more humid part of the enclosure on the right hand side, where the water bowl is. The moss is supposed to keep the surface dry, but the substrate remains as moist as possible. It's also a good humid place if Hubert isn't shed. He has a little wet box under the cork tube, but I think it'll be too small soon. But he got a bigger hide on the left hand side if he's in shed. I put a bit of moist sphagnum moss under it. Then it is his favourite place during the day whilst shedding. Above the hide is a 75-watt heat lamp to get the right temperature. I have no other lighting yet, but UVB and daylight lamps are planned. When he's in brumation, I want to build my own background because Hubert loves climbing. I want to use more vertical space for enrichment, climbing opportunities and fun for my little love. Cool. Well, it sounds like you've got this all planned out and you know what you're on about anyway, so... Again, another snake that I want. Yeah, you've got plenty of clutter there for him to actually disappear backwards. Humid areas for him to access to, so he's got a choice between drier and more humid microclimates, so that's excellent. I agree with you with adding more climbing opportunities. What you could do is buy some cork branches, cut them to the length of the glass on either side and then wedge them in place, like a jungle gym going upwards. I've seen some other people do this and it looks excellent, so you could try that, that'd be cool. Offering some climbing opportunities is all I could really say with this. Okay, hey Liam, I just wanted to start this off by saying I'm a huge fan of your channel. It's weird to think, because I've only just started, but it's weird to think that people are a huge fan of the channel. I don't know, I still feel like it's not like a fully established YouTube channel yet, but thank you, I appreciate that. It feels weird. I can't take compliments. Thanks to you and a couple other reptile welfare channels, I've gotten a lot of valuable insights on how I can improve my animals' well-being. Hope these setups can provide some entertaining sources of critique. This Cresty setup, this first draft, I think is excellent. There's so much habitat complexity in this setup. Not only is half of this hollow, but you can get behind it, to the side of it, inside it, in front of it, in between pieces. If we think about what part of the canopy that, crested geckos actually live in, then you think about all the hollows and the wood in the trees and the different overlapping branches and the speckling of light and the mosaic of basking that's going to provide. I think that you're providing probably what I would probably do myself if I had a crested gecko. I think a lot of people misinterpret what the Isle of Pines is actually like, and it's obviously an Isle of Pines. So what you've got is actually a lot of broad-leafed plants here. Now I'm wondering what alternative plants you could provide that would replicate that. So you want these broad leaves, not only because it represents what the habitat is like, but it will block out portions of light and radiation, and it will create that mosaic and that speckling of light as light travels down through the canopy. So let's try and find you examples of what I call broad-leafed plant would look like. So I'm on Bioactive Herbs again, which we now get 10% discount with. So if you're a subscriber to the channel, look in the description for the 10% discount code that I managed to get for everyone to use, if you're in the UK anyway. I don't make any money from that, I just did it purely to help people out. Right, anyway, live plants, foliage. So this plant looks promising, but I would like to see what this looks like when it's larger. See, this plant would actually fit the build perfectly for you, but you might have to do a lot of trimming to keep the size of this plant down, but that is an option for you. Alternatively, you could choose something of the pothos family, but choose one of the more slender and leaf variety that actually represents the plants we see in that habitat. My name is John, but I go by Brew Climber on Instagram. Yeah, I recognise you. I'm a patron of yours, and I work for Paul Barkley of Custom Reptile Habitats. If you haven't found my Patreon before, me and Dylan have a Patreon series called Keeper Chats, where we basically hang out and just chat with patrons, normally for like 2 hours. It's almost like one of Dylan's podcasts, but we just hang out and chat. And we're starting to get special guests on. So we had Paul Barkley, owner of Custom Reptile Habitats, the guy that was the mastermind behind Barchek's zoo, and he helped out Snake Discovery build their zoo. So we had a brilliant chat with them. Everyone got to chat, share ideas, and it's basically like a reptile show, but we're just online chatting. So if you want to check out that, link to the Patreon and the show is in the description. Come join. So yeah, if you want to come join that, you'll see a lot of behind the scenes things from me, as well as have access to this series, and also you get to support the channel and what I do. So sorry, John, I just interrupted to pimp out my Patreon. I've been meaning to shoot you a message to thank you for such a well thought out, researched and presented video of Brian Barchek and calling up the flipping and flopping of proper housing of our beloved animals. Well done, sir. Thank you. I anticipated people to get real riled up by that, but I'm glad it was well received. Sorry to have sent so many pics, but in the event you liked what you saw, I want you to be able to take a pic of your choices. It's going to be in the thumbnail, I think. I built this with the idea I might encounter in the forest of Florida. So just for a point of interest and maybe a future conversation, when I picked up my enclosure from Paul in May, well, a little over a month ago, I quit my job with a major financial company and began my career with Paul and Custom Reptile Habitats. Looking forward to catching up with you and Dylan sometime on the Patreon chat. I support his channel too. You guys are amazing. If you guys want to hang out and calls with me and Dylan, join the Patreon. Alright, I'll stop promoting it now. So obviously he's using a Custom Reptile Habitats enclosure. I would like to try one of these one day. He's got custom backgrounds. He's got logs going up to the back. He's got a plethora of different plant species, which is making a mosaic of light across the bottom of this setup. I can see a hide here, so some opportunities for fossorial activities. There's also a dark area at the back right, back left. Sorry, there. He's got slate and bits of rockery around his basking area, which will absorb and re-irradiate that heat, which is perfect because he's got moss going into that tube there, which is a humid microclimate. He's got a water bowl, which is out of the radiation. Lots of rocks and stuff. Lots of habitat complexity, which is important for snakes. There you go. Play a drinking game. Every time I say habitat complexity, take a shot. You'll be drunk in no time. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much I would actually change about that at all. I think maybe add some more climbing opportunities with branches, but you've already got so many. I think you've pretty much got the ideal habitat for a Florida king snake. So, yeah, it's good. What you could do is get a cork tube, half it like I said before, and then screw it or pin it or something to the cork background you've got in there. That would be really easy to do, and that would just be an extra elevated position there for them to sit on, get some residual heat from that radiation, but also go in the tunnel as well. So yeah, just little things like that. What you could do actually is you could use Spanish moss. Now Spanish moss is all over Florida, I believe. Let's look at some observations for Spanish moss. So you can see it's pretty much all over southeast Texas, Missouri, and Florida is basically just red with it. So you will see, if we look at some observations, that it kind of suspends itself from trees. And what this plant does is that it will collect water from when it rains and stuff, and that is how it hydrates itself. So what you could do, you could buy this quite cheaply, or I don't know where you live, you could probably just collect it wild, really. And then what you could do is drape that over portions of your branches, and then when it gets quite dry looking, spray it, because when you spray it they go green, and then you can visually tell when it needs water next because it changes colour to a lighter colour, sorry. So that would be a really easy thing to add to this enclosure. Yeah, just another moss that would maybe look cool and fit the Florida theme, really. How long are we in? Because I've been doing it. Okay, so we're an hour in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here and I'm going to save the rest for another reaction video in the future. This takes me a lot of time in between recording these and actually doing that little bit of extra looking into things to find things to help out. So what I would like to propose that we do, there's a bee in my room. Or is that a wasp? Okay, I'm going to deal with that in a minute. What I would like to propose that we do is I would like to do a live stream next time where we can hang out and we can have all your submissions ready. Now we'll use the ones I've already got. And I will do exactly what I'm doing in this video, but live. So not only can we chat, but you can see the research that I'm going through, looking through websites and stuff. And we can do that together, and I think that'd be a cool way to do that in the future. I'd like to do that. I hope I was somewhat critical in this video. I hope that's okay. If it's not, I'm sorry. I was just trying to be helpful. Thank you all for watching, and if you haven't seen the other reaction video to your enclosures, you can see that over here.